All right, let's dive into the world of Data API Builder, DAB for short.
DAB.
We're going to explore how this tool aims to change how developers work with databases.
Oh, interesting.
Imagine never having to write another line of that boilerplate code just to get your applications talking to your databases.
Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome. No more tedious CRUB operations.
Right, DAB can automatically generate REST and GraphQL APIs right from your database.
Straight from the database.
Yeah, and we've got a whole bunch of sources for this deep dive.
Oh, cool.
Microsoft documentation, we got technical blogs, articles from some serious SQL Server experts.
Okay, wow, the heavy hitters.
We're gonna try to synthesize all that for you so you can walk away really understanding what DAB is and how it might fit into your world.
Like a crash course, pulling insights from all these different places.
Exactly. So let's start with the basics.
Okay.
What exactly is Data API Builder?
So at its core, DAB is a zero-code tool that makes those API connections for you.
Okay.
Your applications can, talk to your databases without writing all the usual code.
Interesting.
It's like having a translator that speaks both app and database fluently.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So it's all about simplifying the developer workflow then.
Absolutely. It frees you up from spending hours on that basic create, read, update, delete stuff.
Right.
And lets you focus on tougher problems.
Yep.
More interesting feature development.
Right. Okay.
And the best part, DAB is open source, an IT license.
Open source. That's interesting. So it's totally free to use, modify, even distribute?
Yep, that's huge. It makes it accessible to way more developers, from, solo devs to giant companies.
Okay.
Anyone can use this tech without, licensing edicts.
Wow.
It really lowers the barrier to entry for building cool data-driven apps.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So you mentioned DBI supports a bunch of different databases. Which ones really jumped out at you from the articles?
You know what impressed me was DAB can work with both relational databases.
Okay.
Like SQL Server, PostgreSQL, and NoSQL databases like Cosmos DB.
Wow.
It's not limited by, those traditional database types.
So it's not just for SQL Server people. It can fit into a lot of different stacks.
Exactly. That makes it really powerful.
Okay.
Whether you're working with structured data and tables or flexible JSON documents, DAB can create APIs for it.
Oh, wow.
And then you have the choice between REST and GraphQL APIs too.
Hold on. Back up for a second.
Okay.
Our listener might not be totally familiar with those. With REST and GraphQL.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
What's the difference and why should they care about that?
So both REST and GraphQL, they're ways for applications to talk to APIs.
Okay.
But they have different strengths, right?
Okay.
REST is like sending letters, with requests and responses. GraphQL is more like having a conversation where you can ask for exactly what you need all at once.
Got it.
Choosing the right one, it depends on your data and how the application needs to use it.
Okay, so DAB gives you options.
Right.
Depending on, how your app is set up.
Exactly.
So, they got the API provision part down.
Yeah.
What else did you think was cool about its capabilities?
Well, besides actually making the APIs, DAB has some built-in stuff that really streamlines development.
Right.
It supports OData for filtering, sorting, paginating data.
So it's not just giving you the raw data.
No.
It's giving you ways to work with it efficiently.
Right. With OData, you can easily search for specific data, sort it different ways, even break up huge data sets into smaller chunks so it runs better.
Okay.
It's like having a search engine built right into your API.
Okay, that's pretty handy. Anything else feature-wise that stood out?
They didn't forget about security either.
Okay, good.
DAB supports multiple authentication methods.
Like what?
Like EasyAuth, Microsoft Entra ID, even generic JWT servers.
Okay, but, for our listener, what does that actually mean? Why should they care about those different authentication things?
Security is crucial when you're working with data that, needs to be protected.
Right.
By offering these different methods, DAB lets you integrate with, whatever security you already have.
Okay.
Making sure only the right users of apps can get to your data.
Okay.
And you can control access in a very detailed way, specifying what actions different users can do.
Okay, so it's not just a free-for-all. You can lock things down pretty tight.
Exactly. You can even define roles and permissions, and people only see and work with data that's relevant to them.
So DAB does the security basics, but also gives you the power to customize it.
Right.
Sounds pretty robust.
Yeah, there are other perks too.
Like what?
It integrates really well with Azure Static Web Apps and Application Insights.
Oh, okay.
Those are tools for building and monitoring, modern web apps.
So it fits in well with what people are using now.
It does. It's not some clunky separate thing. It plays nicely with other tools.
Okay, good. One of the articles we read used the classic Northwind database as an example.
Yeah, I saw that one.
What kind of real-world thing did they use to show how DAB works?
They imagine building an app that needs to get, customer data, order info, or product details from this database.
Okay.
With DAB, you could have an API up and running in minutes,
Wow.
all without writing any code.
So it's really good for quick prototyping
It is.
and deploying APIs,
Yep,
even for complex data.
exact.
But what about when you have just massive amounts of data?
Yeah.
Does DAB, choke?
Actually, one thing I found interesting was how DAB handles big data sets.
Okay.
It uses this technique called paging.
Paging.
Yeah, he breaks down those huge result sets into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Okay.
So your app doesn't have to process everything all at once.
So it's like taking a big meal and breaking it up into courses.
Exactly. And it keeps things running smoothly.
Okay.
Even when you're dealing with millions of rows of data,
Yeah.
it prevents your app from, getting bogged down trying to load it all at once.
Right. That's a pretty smart solution.
Yeah.
But what about when you need to go beyond those basic CRUD operations?
Yeah.
Can you actually customize DA or extend what it can do?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And honestly, one of the things that surprised me most about DA,
Okay.
it focuses on simplifying those core database interactions,
Right.
but it gets that not everything can be done with just CRUD.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it gives you a couple options for, extending what it can do.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued. What are they?
First option is to use stored procedures
Okay.
that can make API calls.
Okay.
So you can put custom logic in your database
Uh-huh.
and make it accessible through DAB's API.
So I could write my own code to handle more complex things and then integrate that with DAB.
You got it.
Wow. That opens up a lot of possibilities. But how do you decide which way to go?
It depends.
Yeah.
Stored procedures are good for logic tied to the database.
Right.
Serverless functions are more flexible. They can work with stuff outside the database.
Okay.
It's like choosing the right tool.
Yeah, for the job.
Exactly. And one of the articles pointed out another cool thing. DAB can handle relationships between database tables.
Relationships, what do you mean by that?
Like, let's say you have a books table
Okay.
and an authors table.
Right.
And there's a connection because each book has an author.
Yeah.
DAB gets that and shows that relationship in the API.
Okay.
So you can get related data with one request.
So I don't have to make separate calls to get book details and then author details. I can get it all at once.
Exactly. It makes things simpler,
Yeah.
especially when you need to show connected information.
Okay, that's pretty impressive. So we've talked about a lot.
We have.
DAB seems really powerful
It is.
for simplifying data access and, helping developers build those data-driven apps way more efficiently.
Definitely.
What are your overall thoughts?
I'm honestly impressed.
Mhm.
DAB's versatility, the support for all those database types, the API styles, the customization, handling those complex relationships.
Yeah.
It's really impressive.
Okay.
It can really change how developers work and make databases much more fun.
Right. It sounds like it could be a real game changer, especially for, those of us who are tired of wrestling with all that complex data access code.
For sure.
But before we, wrap up this part of our deep dive, what really stands out to you about DAB? What are you most excited about?
What aspects are most beneficial for your own work or projects?
Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and be sure to join us for part 2 of this deep dive. We'll explore even more of the advanced features and use cases for DAB.
Sounds good?
Welcome back to our deep dive into Data API Builder. In part 1, we unpacked what DAB is, its key features, and how surprisingly easy it is to use.
It really is surprisingly easy to use.
But now I want to, explore some of those more advanced capabilities that make it really shine.
Yeah, one of the things that really struck me from the articles was how DAB handles those relationships between database tables.
Okay.
It's not just, fetching data from individual tables.
Right.
It's about understanding how they connect to each other.
So it's not just grabbing those isolated pieces of information.
Right.
It's actually understanding the context,
Yeah,
the connections within the data.
exactly. And that's where its real power comes in.
Okay.
DAB can navigate those relationships, fetch related data,
Uh-huh.
as if it were all one entity.
It's like it can see the big picture.
Yeah.
The whole web of relationships in your database.
Right.
Almost like it's doing a void operation in the background
Got it.
without you having to write any SQL.
Yeah, and that can save so much time. Yeah. Especially with complex database schemas.
Right. Instead of writing multiple queries
Right.
and piecing together the results,
Yeah.
you get all that related data
Uh-huh.
with a single API call.
Exactly. Less code,
Right.
fewer errors,
Yeah.
smoother development.
And it makes your applications more efficient too, right?
Absolutely.
Fewer API calls, less network traffic, faster responses.
It's a win-win.
Yeah. It all comes back to, what we were talking about before, streamlining workflows, boosting productivity.
Right, and that's just one example of how DAB goes beyond the basics. It's a really comprehensive solution.
Okay, so we've established the DAB is versatile.
Uh-huh.
It's powerful, it's user-friendly.
It is.
But, the tech world is always changing.
It is.
What's like the long-term outlook for DAB?
Well, one thing that stood out to me
Yeah.
was how active the DAB team is.
Oh, okay.
They're always adding features,
Uh-huh.
listening to feedback, staying ahead of the curve.
So it's not just a, stagnant project.
No, they're really invested. They want DAB to be like the go-to solution.
That's encouraging. It's always great to see a technology with so much potential
Yes.
being actively, developed and supported.
Absolutely. And that made me think of something.
Oh, okay.
Could DAB be used to, democratize data access within organizations?
That's an interesting question. What do you mean by democratized data access?
Traditionally, accessing and analyzing data, it's been the domain of, IT specialists and data analysts.
Right.
But what if we could make data accessible to everyone,
Okay.
regardless of their technical skill?
So empowering, non-developers, business users, decision makers
Exactly.
to work with data and get insights without needing those technical teams.
Exactly. Imagine anyone, no
Yeah.
matter their background, could build dashboards, generate reports, even create simple applications
Oh, wow.
that interact with data.
That could be huge. Breaking down silos, improving collaboration, and everyone can make more data-driven decisions.
Right. And DAB, with its zero-code approach, it could be key to this.
Okay.
Making it easy to create those APIs,
Right.
exposing data in a user-friendly way,
Uh,
it could put the power of data in everyone's hands.
That's a really compelling idea.
Yeah.
It's not just about making it easier for developers.
No.
It's potentially changing how whole organizations use data.
Exactly. And that's one of the coolest things about exploring new tech like DAB.
Yeah.
It opens up new possibilities,
Right.
challenges assumptions,
Yeah.
makes us think differently about how we approach problems.
It's a reminder that innovation's an ongoing journey.
It is.
There's always something new out there.
Absolutely. So as we finish this part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to encourage everyone listening to think about how DAB could fit into their own work and projects.
Yeah, maybe it's simplifying data access for a new application.
Right.
Or maybe it's finding ways to help non-technical users work with data.
The possibilities are endless.
Right.
That's what makes this so exciting. Now, before we move on, I
Yeah.
want to touch on a few more details from our research.
Okay, sounds good to me. Let's dive in.
One thing that struck me was the control DAB gives you over security.
Okay.
It's not just basic authentication.
Right.
It's about really granular authorization, too.
So it's not just keeping the wrong people out.
Right.
It's making sure the right people only see what they need to see.
Exactly. DAB lets you define who can access what
Yeah.
and what they can do with it.
Okay.
Different roles, different permissions, making sure sensitive info is protected
Okay.
and users only see what's relevant to them.
It's like a security system that's not just at the front door,
Yeah,
but watching every single row of data.
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And that level of control is so important these days.
Right, with all the concerns about data privacy, regulations like GDPR.
Exact.
DAB seems to have that covered.
It does. Another thing I noticed was the support for multiple data sources.
You mean it can connect to more than one database at a time?
Yep, you can connect it to several databases,
Wow.
even if they're different types.
Okay.
It's a big advantage
Yeah.
if you're in an environment where you got to pull data from lots of systems.
So DAB is like a central hub,
Yeah,
bringing in data from everywhere
right.
and making it all accessible through one API.
Exactly. It really simplifies things.
Wow, that's impressive. That could save organizations a lot of time,
Definitely.
especially if they rely on data from, all sorts of different places.
And then there's the integration with Azure Static Web Apps.
We talked about that before.
Yeah.
But remind me, why is that so important?
Well, Azure Static Web Apps,
Yeah.
it's a platform for building modern web applications,
Right.
Serverless, and DAB fits in perfectly.
Okay.
You can use DAB to make the data API for your web app,
Uh-huh.
all in the same environment.
So all the pieces just fit together.
They do.
No need to switch between different tools and platforms?
It's a truly cloud-native approach.
Okay.
It leverages the power of serverless
Uh-huh.
to streamline everything.
It sounds like they're really focused on making sure DAB works with how people are building things now.
Exactly. They're staying ahead of the curve,
Yeah.
making sure DB is ready for the future of data access.
And speaking of the future,
Yeah.
one article talked about a new feature that's still in development, row-level security.
Row-level security.
That sounds intense. What is that?
It's about controlling access to data
Okay.
at an even more granular level.
All right.
Imagine defining rules
Yeah.
that decide whether a user can see a specific row in a table
Okay.
based on their role, their permissions,
Uh-huh.
or even, dynamic conditions.
So it's like having a security guard for every single piece of information.
That's a great way to picture it.
Yeah,
And it's essential for protecting sensitive data,
right.
especially in apps where different users have specific needs.
So DAB security is already pretty good,
It is.
but they're taking it even further
They are.
with this row-level security thing.
Exactly.
Wow, they're really committed to data security,
Yeah,
giving developers the tools to build, secure and reliable applications.
absolutely.
As we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Yeah,
I'm really struck by how much DAB has to offer.
me too.
From its simplicity to its power
Yeah.
to its, forward-thinking approach.
It's a tool that can really change how we work with data
Yeah.
and free us up to build amazing applications.
But before we move on to our final thought,
Okay.
what's really resonating with you about DAB?
What aspects stand out to you? What questions do you have?
Share your insights in the comments and join us for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore some concluding thoughts about the future of data access. All right, welcome back to the final part of our deep dive on Data API Builder. We've covered so much
You really have.
from DAB's core functionality
Yeah.
and how easy it is to use to
Yeah.
its advanced features
Right.
and how it can potentially change the way we work with data.
It's been quite a journey.
Yeah, yeah. And in this last part, I kind of want to step back a little,
Mhm.
from all the technical stuff and to
Yeah.
think about the bigger picture.
Right.
DAB's place in this whole data world that's constantly changing.
I like that. Connecting the dots, seeing where it all fits.
Exactly, exactly. And one thing that's been on my mind
Yeah.
is this whole idea of data as a strategic asset.
Okay.
In the past, data was often seen as just a byproduct
Yeah.
of, business processes.
Right. Something to be stored,
Yeah.
managed,
Yeah, but not really leveraged.
not really used to its full potential.
Right, it was kind of stuck in different departments and systems.
Siloed away.
Yeah, making it really hard to access and use.
Definitely.
But now,
Yeah.
data is seen as this valuable resource
It is.
that can drive innovation, better decision-making,
Mm-hmm.
create a real competitive edge.
Absolutely.
And tools like DAB,
Yeah.
they play a crucial role in unlocking that value
They-
by making that data more accessible,
Right.
usable, and integrated.
It's about making it work for you.
Exactly. By simplifying that access,
Yeah.
removing those technical barriers,
Mm-hmm.
DAB empowers more people within an organization
More people.
to actually work with the data and get those insights.
Like giving everyone a key
Yeah.
to the treasure chest.
Right, instead of just, a select few.
Exactly.
And that can lead to, a much more data-driven culture
For sure.
where decisions are based on, evidence,
Right.
not just gut feeling.
Data-driven decisions.
Exactly. And everyone can contribute to using that data for, positive outcomes.
Yeah, it's about breaking down those silos
Right.
between technical teams and business users.
Yeah.
Getting everyone on the same page.
And that brings us back to, what we were talking about earlier,
Uh-huh.
democratizing data access.
Democratizing data.
Do you think DAB can really make that happen?
I think it has huge potential. It removes the need for those specialized skills.
Right.
So non-developers, business analysts, executives,
Yeah.
they can all work with data directly.
Imagine marketing teams building their own dashboards.
Yeah,
Sales teams analyzing customer data.
right.
Product managers getting feedback straight from users.
It's a world where data connects everyone.
Yeah. Not a barrier,
Exactly.
but a bridge.
Connecting departments, functions, individuals.
Wow. And decisions are made with more clarity,
Yeah,
more agility, more confidence.
because they're based on data.
Right, right. And, it all goes back to DAB's constant evolution, the
Mhm.
team's commitment to innovating.
Right.
They're pushing the boundaries of what's possible with data access,
They are
thinking about the future.
in creating tools that are not just, technically good,
Right.
but also fit into this bigger picture.
Yeah, yeah. It's really inspiring to see a technology like that.
It is.
Not just solving the technical problems,
Right.
but shaping how we think about data
Absolutely.
and its role in our organizations and in society as a whole.
It really is.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
A parting thought.
Yeah, yeah. What's your parting wisdom?
Imagine a future where data is truly for everyone.
Okay.
Anyone, no matter their skills, can access and analyze information
Uh-huh.
to get insights and make good decisions.
Okay.
It's a world where the power of data is shared,
Yeah.
empowering us to solve problems, make better choices,
Wow.
and create a more informed and equitable society.
That's a powerful vision.
It is.
A future where data helps individuals,
Yeah.
strengthens communities,
Right.
drives progress globally.
Deals like DAB, EB.
Yeah.
They're helping to build that future.
Step by step, connection by connection.
Insight by insight.
So, To our listeners,
Yeah.
keep exploring, keep learning,
Uh-huh.
keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Future is waiting.
Yeah.
And you can be a part shaping it.
And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dives into Data API Builder.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, we hope you enjoyed this journey into the world of data access.
I hope so.
And that you learned some valuable insights along the way.
Definitely.
Until next time, happy data exploring.